Oh, it now says it's being recorded. And we'll, hopefully if we can make all that work, then we'll get it pinged out to people in some sort of format. So just a bit of an overview then. What we're trying to cover is, I've done the introductions, we're trying to give you a bit of an overview of UK Ultimate. I'm going to do some of that, Si's going to do some of that. Wayne will cover, is our treasurer, and will cover the financial review. I'm going to cover a bit of the general review over 2016-17. Si and I are both going to cover, Si's going to do some of that as well. Si and I are both going to cover some stuff on the strategic plan, and then there's just a sort of section at the end about getting involved more. I think that will probably do by way of an overview of the agenda. Looks to me like we've got 12 people inside. Just for those who are just joining us whilst I'm speaking, we were expecting up to about 30 people had said they were going to join. So we're still waiting for a few to come in. I think maybe we'll just hang on here, Si, for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and just to correct something slightly, actually. So the way this is set up, and apologies, it's not a sort of not control freakery from me, I promise. But you can't actually chat directly to everyone else, I believe. So I think that you can send questions to that will appear to be denied, and then we can relay answers to those things. And then you can type answers. I do believe it will be possible at the end. It may depend a bit on our numbers, and it'll depend on the mechanism by which you are kind of logged in, but we might be able to enable people to speak too. I think that will, obviously there's a risk that with lots of different devices and so on, that may be more difficult. So I think we'll sort of hold off on doing that till we get to the end. So just to repeat, so you can send questions, but they'll come through to us, and then we will need to back out.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's 10 past. I mean, I guess maybe we just keep going. I think because
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to pop us onto the next slide then, Si?
Sure.
So I just wanted to cover a little bit in terms of UK Ultimate. Just to kind of give a bit of a background to everything that we're saying. So UK Ultimate is a company. We're not a charity, but that's not. We have looked at that, but it's not something that we're going to pursue at the moment. UKU has a board of directors. We are elected by the members, and our constitution allows us to means that people would stand down every 3 years. We fall a little bit behind with that, but that's not outside the remit of our constitution. But we will be having 3 board members, including me as chair, standing down early in the new year, and there will be communications going out for notices for people to stand as directors. There's more information about the board and the roles on the board on the UKU website. Everything that we do is delivered by a combination of employees and volunteer committees. We're going to cover some of the subcommittees that operate within UKU next. Si's put up there the employees that we have. We now have 5 full-time and 2 part-time employees doing a range of roles that are there on screen. The development one is a very new post, and we haven't, I believe I'm right in saying, I'm looking at Si on his webcam to see whether he's nodding or shaking his head, but I don't think we're yet in a position to be able to say who that's going to be. We've just been going through a recruitment process for that. And then just one other thing to sort of say is, obviously we have a number of other people who work on a contractor basis doing various bits and pieces. One thing I did want to just say here is that we have had some staff turnover this year, and I particularly wanted to say thank you to Benji, Liam, and Kat, all of whom have been with us during the year and have moved on to other things. So thank you very much to all of those. They've all been delivered their jobs fantastically well for us. So I think that's it from me in terms of that overview of the organisation. I think Si is going to pick up now to just to give us a little bit of an overview on the subcommittees. Thanks, Si.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I was momentarily distracted. Somebody texted me to say the webinar had frozen for them. So hopefully it's staying up for most people okay. And we'll just, I guess, keep going. It's an interesting experiment, isn't it? So, so just going to talk about the subcommittees for a moment. You'll see there on the screen, hopefully. We have a number of those in place, and some other perhaps more sort of more open sort of discussion groups, I suppose, or projects that are ongoing. So the competitions committee, not surprisingly, looks after all of our competition work, and they're mostly there to help sort of make decisions about structure, but also it sort of ends up going into things about seeding and so forth as well as we work our way through the year. The uni committee, just jumping across, has historically been mostly about the university competitions too. Actually, as we have now got full-time staff running a lot of the competition work, we see that university committee's role kind of changing actually, and hoping that they will have more capacity and time to be involved in supporting the universities in the region that they are responsible for. So we're hoping that committee's role will start to change over the next year or so. There are two committees on there that are just sort of subcommittees of the board right now. So the finance is mostly just a way that we use to have some of the board members look more closely at the finances without necessarily involving the whole board group in all of that detail. And the remuneration committee is a subcommittee of the board that just looks at the salaries of all of the staff. The safeguarding committee is a new group that we've just recently been really happy to get some people come forward to join. And the goal there is that we are trying to put some things in place to help clubs and players that are interested in doing more in their club to help bring in young players, but are maybe perhaps unsure or just want some more information about those sort of areas. And so we've been really lucky. We've got 4 or 5 people whose normal day job allows them to have quite a bit of experience, and they're offering us some extra help with just reviewing the policies again, seeing what extra tools we can provide, extra advice for people in that situation. So that's a new group and that's just getting going. The Spirit of the Game Committee is something we set up 3 or 4 years ago to put in place some policies alongside the objective spirit scoring system that WUFT have created. And so, you know, many people on here hopefully will be aware that at tour tournaments and nationals, the scores are tracked, and at times, if teams are getting low scores or triggering scores effectively, then somebody from the committee may get in touch and have a conversation with them. And we were the first of the national federations to do something like that. And you know, when we first set it up, we had quite a bit of interest from some of the others about what we'd done. The junior committee is probably fairly self-explanatory, a group that's sort of there to support the junior competition, the junior teams. Medical group was something that we put in place and did more work some years ago, really, as we started to send physios and doctors with our GB teams more often. That group was sort of part of that. It's less active at the moment. The GB oversight group is a small group that just helps with the processes around the GB teams where there are decisions that are needed, so recruitment, sort of appointments, if you like, to the coaching positions, and then sometimes some ongoing decisions that are needed. For the most part, those are handled by the squad coaches, captains, managers, but there are times when those things kind of, it's unclear how they proceed, so they may come back to that group. And the Women's Committee, which we've had in place for a while, but recently Georgie Davin, who's one of the board members, had managed to sort of reinvigorate the group, and it's been really perhaps one of the more active committees in the last 6 months to a year, which is great. And so perhaps one of the things to mention in particular is the Find a Team project that group did, which was aiming at trying to help women players that were hadn't kind of worked out where they might play in the club season, just trying to connect them up with clubs, and had over 130 people kind of put their information into that and get in touch. 20 teams also getting in touch, and so I think we helped quite a few people get connected to teams there. So probably likely to do something like that again, and also I think thinking about how we might go about doing that for the university sector too, because we know there's a bit of a difficulty there for uni players once they leave. I think the other thing though we would say is that all of those subcommittees are full of volunteers, and they are all, the activity in most of those do tend to fluctuate. One of the things that we anticipate putting a bit more staff time into over the next couple of years is trying to do more to help those committees not fluctuate up and down so much. So help with keeping people coming in and out as they have availability and so on, and also just trying to provide a few more tools for people to meet and for people to sort of store information and so forth. So we also then have these more sort of informal groups, if you like. So there are a couple of there's our coach educator team that are involved in delivering our coach education courses. We have a group of people dealing with the so the Find a Team thing. So Mark has just commented that would be good for students, and I think that we are thinking that it's it is something that we would like to try and repeat around the student situation when they're going home at summer, at holidays, and also when they graduate. Okay, so the Game Advisors is a group of people who have done the Game Advisor work at either 2015 or 2016, and we were trying to put some work in place to decide how we, or even whether we, should be integrating Game Advisors into domestic competitions. Mentioned already the GB squads and the managers and coaches of those. In 2017, we also had a really big group. I can see a couple of people from that team, I think, on the line now, who really helped out with this big live stream effort that we had. I'll talk again a little bit about that in a bit, but we live streamed 2 fields from the 3 Open and Women's Tour and Nationals this year, which was a really fabulous effort from the people that did that. We also, towards the end of this year, following some activity that WFTF had done, but also some interest here in the UK to set up a sustainability group. So there's a fairly big Facebook group now talking through some ideas, and there is a sort of draft document that's I think due to come out pretty soon. I don't think we've managed to publish it yet, but due to come out, just with suggestions for clubs about things they might consider doing in that respect, and also in terms of things that we would be doing at our tournaments. And lastly, we are working on a new website, and we've got a small group of people helping with that. And actually, that's perhaps one of the first places I might sort of make a shout out for help. If you are a sort of website or development project manager and you're interested in sort of sticking your oar into that project, we'd be interested to get a couple more people involved. Great. Hopefully that makes sense to people, and I will keep moving on. Not seeing any questions, so I'm just going to keep going. So, I mean, a couple of comments, and thanks for people that have. So I can see comments that you write or questions that you ask. So I can see them pretty much straight away. So I will. Okay. So I will try my best to sort of pick them up as we go along, as we said. So Ali is saying that sound cut out. Obviously, it's hard to know if that's at your end, Ali, or mine. So if other people are having problems and a chunk of what I've said has disappeared, let me know and I'll go back. In the meantime, we, in just sort of our quick round the houses on UK Ultimate, the membership, as you would all know, we're a membership organisation. This chart is just showing our 3 membership types. We had pretty steady growth for a while, and in the last 3 years that seems to have flattened out. We've probably already said several times, and no doubt we'll repeat, that during 2015 and 16 we did get very switched over to the World Championship stuff, and so that wasn't something that we paid much attention to in that time. But I think now, 3 years, you know, with another year of it being pretty similar to 2015, I think it's clear that there is something to think about here, and so we will be doing so. Sorry. Okay. Excuse me. Lost a bunch of windows for a moment. They're all back. Ian has said, "Are basic to full upgrades counted twice?" No, we don't do that. So we subtract that thing back out. So we're not counting those people twice. So if somebody upgrades, when we do that count up, if somebody is showing up as having 2 types of membership, we subtract out their basic membership in the count. Make sense? No problem. Okay. Just some other numbers. The coaching membership, the number of coaches. So Mark has asked if the number of registered coaches has increased. It is very slowly increasing, but it is not increasing as quickly as the number of people who are doing our coaching courses. So just to sort of jump into that a little bit. So that's so for people who don't know, we run coaching courses that people can attend, but we also have a scheme called Coach Registration, which primarily really offers an insurance product to people who are actively coaching. So it's not required if you're only if you do the coaching course and then you're just coaching in your club, you don't need it. That's something that we've organized with through our insurance broker. But if you are somebody that's actively coaching in other places where you're not a player, you might be going into schools, or it's obviously a completely separate club or multiple clubs, then we would advise that it's the best thing to do to make sure that you have some sort of liability insurance, and that's basically the bulk of what you get through Coach Registration. We want people to be registered so that we have more visibility of people who are doing that, but it's not something that that we have to make people do. So that number is gradually going up, Mark, but not it's not, as I say, not as quickly as the number of people who are actually doing the courses, which I suppose is not surprising, but yeah. Okay, so some other numbers just briefly. So our affiliated club number is gradually going up too. So the club affiliation, again, is a similar thing. So one of the goals of that is to provide insurance for club committees who otherwise may not be insured. If a club is a sports club is just a group of people, the committee of that group, of that club, can potentially be liable for difficulties in their club or problems. The affiliation allows people to bring the club committee under UK Ultimate Insurance. But actually there are other good reasons for it. So it allows us, or it should allow us, to end up with a sort of formal connection between UK Ultimate and the club, so we know who can speak on behalf of the club. We want to use it as a way of making sure clubs update the information that they're giving to us each year. But it also allows us to collect some information about the club, so we can kind of say back out to people whether that's the kind of club that is welcome, is able to take on beginners or isn't able to, or is able to take on junior players or isn't, and so on. So we'll continue to just build that up, and we're gradually sort of, I guess making it compulsory for some groups of teams. So all the people who are playing, internationally, and I think probably at nationals as well now, we're trying to chase up to get them to make sure they're in. Okay. We also started a couple of years ago a school affiliation scheme. We did this on the back of a deal we did with Discraft, where they provide us with a number of training disc misprints, effectively, that we can provide to schools. So what we do is every time a school affiliates to us once a year, we send them 5 discs, and they give us a little bit of information. And actually, it's really low level of transactions. So we just ask them for a contact, and we ask them how many people they expect in the school will be playing some Ultimate in the curriculum, and how many people will be in a club. And you can see from that number down the right-hand side that those 145 schools equate to an estimated nearly 20,000 children playing some sort of Ultimate at school and in the curriculum. And then, there are clubs with about, extracurricular, after school clubs in those schools with about 3,000 players in. So, they're quite interesting numbers, and there are a lot of schools, thousands and thousands and thousands of schools. So we're obviously just sort of scratching the surface there, but it's been an interesting process to go through. And then the last line in that table is the Sport England Active Live survey. So firstly, apologies that it is only England. So as a result of our recognition with the sports councils, though, we're now on that Active Live survey, and they estimate that the number of people that play Ultimate or Frisbee, they don't differentiate at the moment, so it's both, is in the mid 60,000s. That's if you look at the data there, it's available on the Sport England website, and it's we're higher than some sports that are in the Olympics, so it's interesting. There are certainly more people playing Ultimate out there and Frisbee than we see directly. Somebody just asked me a question about coaching. I'll just come back to that in a moment, if I may. So just to finish off these 2 bits. So the other bit is on the number of clubs that are playing. So the university numbers there and the club numbers, a bit like the membership, appear to have been relatively flat for the last 2 or 3 years. So we're up in the around 70 university institutions playing Ultimate. Quite a large number of teams, as you can see there. As far as Club Ultimate goes, the mixed division has pretty much reached a similar size to the Open. The women's is about 40% of that size. There's a bit of a concern that dropped down a little bit last year, but with the numbers that we're talking about, it's hard to be sure if that's a sort of really definitive drop, or if it's just sort of things to do with a particular date not working for one team and so on. So obviously we're keeping an eye on that. Those uni team numbers are both, the total numbers there are both, yeah. Which is why we've got that institute. So sorry, so Dan's just asked if the uni numbers are indoors and outdoors or both. So that total number of teams is across, actually, Dan, I'm really sorry, I don't know if that total number of teams is across outdoors and indoors, across all 3 divisions. The number of institutions, and that's, I guess, why we've kind of picked on that institution. So we have checked out that number. So those are the people, and so they don't all enter every division, indoors or outdoors. And then if I can just go back to the question about the coaching. So Luca has asked if there's a plan to create a level 3 coaching qualification. I mean, one day, yes, but there's no short-term plan to do that. Right now, we're trying to consolidate our content and delivery on level 2 and keep, working our way through the level 1s. I think what you'll see happening is that we're adding more optional content into the level 2, if you like, and the level 3 will be a similar thing in the end, where you need credits from various modules as well as the core sort of UK Ultimate piece. So there's not really a short-term plan to produce a level 3 qualification right now. Happy to talk to people who think we should have that, but perhaps not right now. But that's the situation as it stands. Yeah. Okay. We just wanted to speak for a moment about the organisations that are that we work with or are around us. So the international ones that jump out are obviously our international federation is called the World Flying Disc Federation. I'm sure you all know that, WFDF. They are recognised by the International Olympic Committee now. In Europe, the EUF, the European Ultimate Federation, looks after ultimate, within Europe. So they organise the European Ultimate Championships, the Beach Championships, the annual European Ultimate Club Series, Championship Series. And I believe Alia is on the call. Alia is a member of that organisation on the board there. We also then have our sort of peer organisations around the world. Obviously, USA Ultimate, the French, for example, the French Flying Disc Federation, the Australian Flying Disc Association, and so on. Within the UK, we, as I mentioned already, are now recognised by UK Sport and the Home Country Sports Council. So that's Sport England, Sport Scotland, etc. Yeah, so Dan has asked about WFDF and Flying Disc Federations. And Dan, I'm going to come back to that point in a bit, if that's okay. No, I wasn't. I was going to say it here. Okay, so I will. And thanks for the reminder. So as part of the process of trying to get Olympic inclusion, WFDF is trying to make sure that they tick all boxes related to that situation. And one of the concerns that they have, and is raised by the IOC in a sort of informal way, is that we have quite a lot of the membership structure that WFDF has with its national federations. So, for example, in the example I put on the screen, in France there is a Flying Disc Federation, like WFDF is a Flying Disc Federation, but there are quite a few ultimate organisations. UK Ultimate is one, USA Ultimate, Ultimate Canada, and so on. And WFDF is in a process right now of seeking to get back to a place where there is only one member per country. The implication would be that either we take on responsibility for the other flying disc sports, or that we get together with those other flying disc sports and create an umbrella organisation that is the WFDF member, and we are all members of that. That's not a straightforward process, actually, and so there's quite a few countries engaged in a WFDF task force talking this through at the moment and working out what the implications are. We've had some initial conversations with British Disc Golf, and the reality is they're not particularly interested because their interest in being part of WFDF is not very strong. So we're working on that, essentially, Dan, and it's not clear to me how that's going to pan out right now. Okay, going back to the UK organisation, so I talked about Sport England, etc. BUCS is the governing body for university sport. We have, perhaps of all those organisations in the UK, that's the group we know best. We do a lot of work with them. Most of our, well, all of our men's and women's competitions are now BUCS sanctioned competitions. They have rules that prevent us having men's, women's, and mixed. That's why mixed isn't part of it. We recently moved the men's competition, outdoor competition, to being a Wednesday afternoon league. We are going to be going back to the university clubs in the next few months to try to figure out where we're up to with the women's teams, because we would like to make that transition when it's the right time for our clubs and for our women players. Because if we do it too soon, we'll end up without a viable kind of competition structure, and it may be self-defeating. So we'll be kind of going back to that question with people. Yeah, okay. And then the other perhaps organisation to mention that we're doing quite a bit with right now is the Youth Sport Trust. They are a sort of delivery agent for Sport England for school sport. They are effectively the school sport branch of the government in a way, I suppose, but then technically not. We're a member now. They have recently put in place an NGB, a National Governing Body membership scheme. We've joined that, and we're working on them with a couple of projects, one of which I'll come back to in a moment. Sport and Recreation Alliance is an organisation that we're members of, who mostly are a sort of lobbying organisation for sport, and they do some great stuff, just trying to make sure sport's voice is heard when new legislation is being worked on and so forth. We have some commercial partners too. Discraft have been, a really great partner for the last few years. I mentioned what they do have done for us that's helped us with this school affiliation. We typically have a deal with one of the ultimate gear suppliers. We're currently with VC Lookfly for our GB kit. 2013 through 16, we were with Gaia Europe, Jump and Reach. The other two that I've just sort of highlighted there are that in 2016, the GB Open team was sponsored by an insurance broker organisation called Hyperion. It was a bit of a one-off opportunity and slightly unusual, but that was great. It was really fantastic to have their support. And that's ceased for the moment. Obviously, we hope to do some more with them in the future, but for the moment that stopped. I mentioned already also Fanseat. So in 2017, they provided support for us to be able to live stream a number of competitions, and that was really interesting. There's an obvious question about whether that will happen in 2018, and we don't know yet. We're waiting. They're reviewing their plans for the next year, and we're looking forward to talking to them about those. So we're hoping to do at least some or similar to what we did before, but there was lots that we learned out of it, so we didn't necessarily do exactly the same thing, and no doubt they're also thinking the same thing. And I guess while we're here, it'd be interesting just to note that we think that one of their difficulties is that they're not getting huge levels of subscriptions. We're not sure, because that's not data that they would necessarily share with us. But I think I would say that if you and people around you like that amount of coverage and liked it being there, I would encourage people to subscribe, because I think without that they will struggle to keep doing it. Oops, sorry, clicked the wrong thing. Okay. So, I tell you what, before I hand over to Wayne, I'll just pause for a moment to see if anyone has any questions about, or obviously people have asked some questions as we go along. Somebody asked, how do they know if we have subscribed due to Ulti? I'm pretty sure they can see what you watch. So I think they have a pretty good idea why people are subscribing, or what they're watching after they've subscribed. So somebody's asked, do we know if the stagnant player figures are because we lose a lot of players or not getting many new players? So hey Sparks. So the first answer to that is that we don't really know. I'm going to come back to some comments about what we do about participation growth and how we plan to put quite a lot of effort into that. We've always had loss of players, actually. I think that there's quite a drop-off at graduation or pretty soon afterwards, and that's the place, in my opinion, and from the work that we have done in terms of looking at it, where those players seem to be dropping off. My own take is that we've got a job to do there at the point where people graduate, in terms of helping them find a new place to play. And I think that we have a big job to do in terms of providing easier access to playing. So just so everyone will be familiar with the difficulties that people reach of getting to these weekend-long tournaments. And so my take also from that is that we need to be doing something about that. And so that's I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm laughing because Mark Bignell has also offered another view, which is that clubs can also be quite selective about who they take in, and I think there is an issue or a question there to be looked at too, but I don't think it's for, I personally don't think it's for the governing body to sort of try to mandate the way people operate in that context, and so I guess what we need is a conversation there with the community. So the other part of Sparks' question was whether it wasn't that we're not getting a lot of new players. We get a lot of new players at university every year. It's quite hard to see whether we're, but new players outside of university, not so much. That's clearly something people find more difficult. So hopefully that's answered that question. And Mark is happy to say, I mean, Mark, you go for it. If you want to start any conversation on BritDisc or Show Game, that's fine. That's, I mean, we're those conversations are good if the community is talking about those things. And somebody has also asked, sorry, Peter has also asked if there will be any discussions with unis about the men's Bucks leagues to see about ways to improve it. Yes, so yeah, I think we will come back out to everybody to ask some questions. We have been doing a little bit of a look at the way it's structured. Some of it is down to Bucks as well as us. But in general, if we go to Bucks with a thought-through plan with data from our community, they're very open to what we have to say. I would say probably I think our sort of immediate priority, perhaps in the question of the Bucks League, is also to make sure that it's not causing difficulties to the women's clubs and the women's teams. So I think there are two questions there to be figuring out. But so yes, we will be reviewing that structure. I don't know if that means we'll be able to review something and then potentially make changes in time for the next season. There is quite a lag in that process, but we have had a bit of an internal conversation about it, and I think we'll be trying to go and get some more info from teams soon. Okay. All right, so I've tried to answer things that have appeared on my screen there as we've gone along. I'm going to hand over now a little bit to Wayne to talk about money. Oh, I'm sorry, actually, maybe I might have another comment somewhere here. Yeah, okay.
I'm waiting for my turn.
You're on. I'm out.
Okay, great, thank you. First of all, hello everyone. I just need to apologise because I've got a very sore throat, and I also don't have the technology set up at the moment to have a working webcam. So you have to look at an old picture of me. It's actually from today, but it's not moving like everyone else's. I'm also unable to see questions as they pop up. So Si will be looking for me, and if there's anything useful, he will flag it, and we'll try and pick them up as we go. Excuse me. So first of all, I want to give you an overview. So UK Ultimate, not only do we organise the events and everything else around being a national governing body for a sport, we're also a company, so we take in money, we spend money, we have to make sure we balance those up. And I thought I'd just give you a quick overview of the biggest things in that. So the main income we have is from our events, particularly so in 2016 and 2015. But even on an ordinary year, the events that we run up and down the country is the majority of our income. We don't run them at a huge profit. We aim to make a small profit so that we don't go bankrupt, but we just aim to keep those ticking over, and we run an awful lot of events in the last few years. They've all been brought, a large number of events have been brought in-house. If we wound the clock back 10 years, there were individual tournament directors running events. Some were great, some were less so. And I think by bringing them in-house, we've managed to maintain a reasonable level of quality and also ensure sort of fair financing. And if there are profits made, at least they're kept within the sport, which is great. We also have income from all our members signing up each year. And then the smaller levels of income are from coaching courses. It's obviously growing, but quite small compared to the other two. We used to have a modest amount of disc sales each year as well, and we sometimes get commercial arrangements. For example, the Hyperion deal that Si mentioned earlier, sponsorship deal. We had some money from Youth Sport Trust via Matalan as well that helped pay for some coaching and some other things we did in that area. We manage our finances sort of within each of those areas. So if you like, the expenditure is the same sort of thing. Events, there are so many costs that go into an individual event. We have the income to cover it, so that's okay. We also have, as I mentioned, 5 full-time staff now, or very, very soon. We'll have 5 full-time staff and a couple of part-time staff. That's a big commitment for us, and I guess that's always a big conversation that we have in the board when we take on a new person, because we have responsibilities as an employer not to take someone on and then tell them they're not needed in 6 months' time. So we have to think carefully about such things, and we have to comply with all the same employment law as anyone else. And the people who work for us are working for us, and we have a responsibility to look after them. And I'd like to echo Graham's comments earlier. Liam, Benji and Kat, who all left us in the year and have been replaced, did a load of great work, and we're really grateful for that. The other large source of income and cost to us is the GB squads, which we manage the finances centrally within UK Ultimate. If anyone out there has been on a GB squad recently, you'll know that you pay a sort of elite membership fee, and you pay your other fees through UK Ultimate to pay for what you're getting. We try to run all of those at a break-even level. I think we take about £20 out per player to cover our admin costs, which is about what it costs. We've tried to just break even on that, but that's a huge amount. The next slide will show us when we get there. That's a huge amount of money each year and a lot of effort to manage. And at the bottom of this slide, it just mentions over the last few years, we try to keep all of these income streams both strong and also make sure that we're in control of it. You sometimes hear stories of national governing bodies losing their funding from Sport UK, and it's a massive implication when your own funding is out of your control. We're sort of pleased that we are able to plan much better because we control all of this, we know what's going to happen, and we have an idea of where we're going. I think it's possible in the future we may get more grant income. It's great in one sense, but the lack of control we have over it will be difficult for us to get used to when we get into that position. So I'm ready for the next slide if there's no questions. Cool. Actually, I just realised I have to change it on my own computer. Bear with me, everyone.
Yeah, so there were no questions. And while you do that, Wayne, I'll just mention that I changed the picture for this slide to show that you had won a World Championship gold medal there.
Yeah, ancient history, but thank you. It's also me celebrating the strength of our finances as they are at the moment. This is a summary of the last 4 years. We're predominantly talking about 2016 at the moment, but it's a bit hard to see that without any context of the prior years. And the years are kind of backwards, but if the left-hand most column with figures has 2016, you will see that we took in over 1.8 million last year, which is just astonishing for what is a very small organisation, largely all the work done by volunteers with the handful of employees that we have. That's almost entirely due to the impact of Worlds 2016. For us, that was a massive event, sort of in every sense. And if I talk about the financial sense, it just completely dwarfed everything. Sort of maybe 80% of what we did was Worlds. And for us as an organisation, it was big enough that it's a great thing. And one of the things we set out to do was to win events like this from time to time. But it was delivered really successfully. The setup of the event was amazing. In the background, the financial risk gave us some headaches early on. We were in it's very hard to plan a big event like that because we're very susceptible to the number of teams that will come in, and our experience of 2015 World Under 23s, which was held at the same venue, we had fewer teams attend than we had budgeted for, and it made things very difficult, and we did well to come out of that in a reasonable position. And 2016, as a bigger event, carried more risk. You can see from this that we made a large surplus on the event, and which I'm very grateful for. We set out to make a small surplus, that was the plan, but we had a huge number of teams take part, and we had to cap it at, I think it was 120. If anyone went to the World Beach Tournament this year, you'll see that they had to cap that tournament as well. And it just becomes, obviously you take another team, you make more money, but the event becomes impossible to deliver. So we capped it at, I believe, 120 teams. That was at a level that we were going to be financially safe. We then we charged people for attending as spectators, which I think is, I don't think I've been to another Ultimate event where that's happened. We did the same thing at under 23 the year before as a trial run, and we were just astonished by how many people came in 2016. Finals day was magnificent. We sold out the stadium. We had to hire extra seats 2 days before the event because we were still selling tickets, and that probably went towards giving us about 50% of that surplus came from just the ticket sales from that event. It was amazing. So events, you can see, are the huge thing. If we were to look at 2017, we didn't host a Worlds this year, and that's enabled us to return a bit more towards day-to-day business. The other things that sheet shows UKU business. You can see it increasing steadily year on year. That's regular events and coaching income and disc sales. 2016 is a small drop. I think it's because almost all our staff were working on the event, and we had less time to give towards running smaller events and running coaching courses. The GB program, the figures there show you how large an impact the number of GB teams has on what we do financially each year. Without a Worlds in there, it's approaching half of what we do is running the GB program. Now we run it at a break even, but it still takes a fair amount of management to keep that going. And one of the things I was going to mention when I was on this screen is we've obviously made a surplus in 2016, and we'll probably talk more later and at our board meeting in January about what we do further to invest that money. What we've done so far is to take on new employees. So, for example, we're about to announce we've announced we've recruited for the new development role. We're in the process of recruitment, and we'll be announcing that soon. But that surplus enables us to commit to take on employees who will then deliver coaching programs, deliver development role, go around the country, meet people, make things, get things set up, enable the school's affiliation program to work better, work on the admin within our sport, enable Sai did a lot of work in the last couple of years on getting recognition with UK sport, so enable us to work on all of those things. That's what we spend the reserves on. I will make a couple of other comments as well. Just financially, we have to spend our time thinking about things that are not specifically related to Ultimate. For the size of Worlds, we had to register for VAT. Turns out we're in quite a complex VAT position, so we spent a lot of time working on our VAT registration and our VAT returns last year. We have to provide pensions for our staff, so under current rules, all employers have to provide for pensions for their staff, so we do that, and we have to do all the other things that a company with employees does. I think that's it. Thanks, Si.
Thanks, Wayne. That's great, thank you. No questions came up there, so I'm going to keep going. If anyone's got any, we can stop. Just going to talk about just some other sort of general comments from 2016. Wayne has already mentioned that it was dominated by Worlds, so that's clear. It was well received. I think we got a lot of great feedback from all over the place, despite the absolute destructive flood that we had on Thursday. I think the big thing I'd like to say was that we had 200 volunteers, more than 200 volunteers at the event, and it was, I mean, it was just a fantastic group of people, some of whom are on the call now. Thanks again. I think one of the things that struck us, though, was that, Worlds is a very clear project, very exciting project, but it's also very clear. And I think one of the things that we struggle with outside of that is working out as a group and a community how to make the same sort of offer to people, I think, that's exciting to volunteer for. So we definitely will be looking to try to do some of the things that we want to do and sort of present them out to everybody in a way that feels more like a big project that everyone can kind of get their arms around and understand, because it's clear that we have a fantastic community of people who want to help, and so it was a really fantastic learning experience, that from Worlds, and I think that's the thing that one of the things that we can really take away for the future. So we'll be trying to do that. Just to look at a couple of other highlights from a competitions point of view. In the uni competition, we put the men's and women's tournaments in the same place for the first time. I think we were able to put them all in one of the big indoor 3G football pitches that we book frequently in Scotland. See more and more of our indoor tournaments moving into those things, and there are a couple more now. We've also got one in London that we're using now for a few events. We also set up the beginning of this 3-year deal to put beach nationals in Poole, working with Bournemouth University, which has been great. And obviously that's something that we're keen to keep moving forward, is that we do develop a thriving beach scene. Obviously the weather doesn't necessarily work in our favour there, but I think it's it's a fabulous format of the game. We as a country typically do pretty well internationally at those events, and so we'd like to build up the number of those events that are occurring in the UK too. And also the other perhaps thing to mention was that we did turn some teams away from a couple of the Open Tour events, and that was the sort of warning bell, if you like, that we really needed to be doing more to adapt the tour structure to cope with more teams, and more of that in a bit. What else? So clearly at a GB level, it was sad that we didn't get the sort of home advantage, if you like, and that we then also subsequently missed out on the World Games. Our clubs continue to do really well, though, at the European Championships. I know some Reading folks on the line here, but also Clapham and Iceni, continuing to do well also. And then sort of organisationally, some quick things, did some hiring and so on. I think so a couple of things to mention then also. So we did, as I've already said a couple of times, did finally get the formal recognition from the sports councils, which was a long time, a lot of work to get to, and it took a long time. Actually, it was the amount of time that took that was really frustrating. We also made a first sort of start, if you like, on sort of reviewing the strategy with members, and we put out a survey that I'm sure people will remember, and I've no doubt if you've taken the time to be on this call, you will probably took the time to respond to that, so thanks. And it was pretty clear actually coming out of that people wanted us to prioritize, participation growth at the local level, development, local development, and also the coach education area. And that's, I guess, what we're going to be trying to do more of, moving forward. On that in a bit. And that was my comments for 2016. Also some comments for 2017. So thinking about that coaching part. So firstly, we have sort of, so as sort of was shown earlier on, we have Cheska Tyler Weddle took on the role of coach education coordinator. She's currently out on maternity leave, but as a result of that change and so on, we've started to increase the number of level 2, so she was able to get some of that in motion. So we've done 2 of those this year, which is sort of getting that moving again, and the process for people in those courses is, I think, improving. I think just an observation that somebody came to me and mentioned, which I did think was interesting, because it does, I think, suggest that non-playing coaching is coming, was that actually in both of the Open and Women's divisions at Nationals this year, all 4 of those teams had non-playing coaches, and that's new. That wasn't happening before. Again, picking up on the competition stuff, so we started to make some adjustments to the tour structure, primarily in the Open division. We know that that's not always universally popular, because because it splits people up, but the reality is that there just aren't the venues to keep that going. So sorry, to keep having everybody in the same place, and sadly the venue that we used for London Calling and for the 2 World Championships isn't available anymore. Not because we did anything bad. I mean, they did fight. It was a tough relationship for a while, but it was much more that actually Watford just developing the site and taking more control of it from UCL, and so they are not really doing kind of the sort of external booking that we want from a venue. We did also move Club Nationals to a new venue in Birmingham, much more central location. We tried out the 3-day competition in the Open division. And we also had the challenge of what to do about having Irish teams joining because of the European Championship Series and the potential impact for World Clubs qualification. So we know that a couple of those things that weren't universally popular. We have been gathering some data on the 3-day thing, and we'll be sort of coming back out with some information about that soon. But I think we're likely to move back to 2 days for all 3 divisions of Nationals. But we are expecting to go back to that venue in Birmingham again next year, and yeah, some more date stuff coming out this week, we hope. I already mentioned the fan seat deal. Talked about some of the roles. So Meg Price had started as a full-time events coordinator. Benji left in September to be a full-time coach, in case you didn't know about that. So he's now a full-time coach at the University of St Andrews, ultimate coach. We are just finishing off a process of hiring a new member of staff to work on development, primarily youth development. Following on discussions in last year's AGM, we put a donations button alongside the membership renewal process now. So people have often so our membership fee has not changed for about 15 years. A couple of times at AGMs in particular, people sort of say, why don't we put the fees up? Which we've tried to avoid doing, and we try to sort of move more of the income to the events, because it sort of seems preferable to link it to the moment that people play, rather than having the kind of flat rate membership. We will probably need to increase membership at the next go round, but in the meantime, you know, following that suggestion, we did also put this donation option in. I think, you know, it's interesting. People, you know, people are doing it. Some people are kindly adding a donation as they do their membership, and it's quite an efficient way to do that for us and for the person. And then my last comment here is just that we were recently invited to submit an expression of interest to join the school games. So the school games is a national competition structure. Actually, it's an English competition structure. I'm sorry, I should be more accurate about that. That is run by the Youth Sport Trust. There are a number of sports that are sort of formally recognised in that competition, and they typically have high levels of participation at school. And handball is a really interesting example of a sport that really doesn't have much history in our country. Gained a bit of traction around the Olympics and did get into the school games, and they have over 1,000 schools playing handball. And you know, I've met with the CEO of handball, and he attributes that to the school games. So it was really interesting that this year the school games were reviewing the sports. They did want to add a couple more, and there were people playing Ultimate in some school games competitions. So I'll come to your question in a sec. That's great. So there were some people playing, and so as a result of that, people, you know, local organisers are allowed to do other sports. And when the Youth Sport Trust collected data about what was going on, we showed up on that as people playing Ultimate, you know, in the school games. They also checked in on that with Sports England, who also said, yeah, you know, talk to Ultimate. That's a good idea. So both the Youth Sport Trust and Sport England were interested and encouraging about the idea that we might join in. So we are just finishing that expression of interest now. Doesn't mean we'll get in, but I think it's worth noting that even just being asked is quite a big step forward. You know, a few years ago, we would not have been on the radar for that sort of thing at all. So Ian has asked if there's interest in qualifying for the ISF games. Ian, I think, are you referring to the recent announcement that was made to do with the International School Championships that came out via WFDF? Assuming that yeah, okay, thank you, Art, yeah. So actually we haven't talked to them about that yet. Their interest is much more at the other end, so they're far more interested in what we have to offer as a sport that is interesting and new and looks different and could be of interest to people who are not necessarily the people who are playing in the other schools competitions. Sorry, in the other sports. So they're more interested in Ultimate from that angle right now. We did notice that that announcement. In fact, WFDF made that announcement at the Congress in the summer, and we'll certainly be looking at the best way to kind of connect with that competition. It may be that it makes more sense to do it through our existing schools competitions, and also it will depend on the age groups that we end up doing the school games at. So that's a question of, in the school games, we may or may not end up with, you know, we may not end up having the same age groups in the school games as would be in that international competition. So we'll have to sort of look at that question. And Mark has mentioned that there are some private school competitions that might be worth approaching too, and we have been trying to get some contact through Matt Bevan, actually, who does fantastic work at his school, and he is trying to get us a bit of a connection there to the private school organisations. Okay, I'm going to keep going. If I can press the right button. I can't. Got several screens here. Okay, just sticking with the same sort of system as before, just some comments sort of internationally. So in 2017 we trialed a development squad for the under 2014s. That's been really interesting. We wanted to try to bring all of the players together initially. A few different reasons. Some of them about just cohesion across all three squads. Some of them about trying to somewhat raise the profile of mixed in those squads, because historically it's perhaps, you know, doesn't quite have the same profile as the other two squads, but it is the sport that's played at the World Games, and if we do succeed in getting into the Olympics, it's pretty likely to be mixed too. So for those reasons, and just because it's probably the right thing to do, we wanted to sort of have a go at that. And it's been a long sort of held feeling of folks coming in and out of GB squads that it would be good to move towards a sort of more integrated sort of structure for people who are moving across age groups and so on. So and to have a training structure that isn't just about the next set of teams. So that's been really interesting. You know, it hasn't been without challenges, and so we're trying to gather the feedback from that, and you know, I guess it will lead on to something new that is, you know, maybe similar but different. And you know, I'm kind of hopeful that it will also encompass, you know, the lower age group players as well, probably at that point. We also took a pretty difficult decision in 2017 to not send GB junior women's teams in the under 20 and under 17 divisions. The background was that we'd had a few years of pretty low numbers of people trying out, and we were then subsequently taking some pretty inexperienced players to what are very physically grueling competitions, and we began becoming a bit uncomfortable with that. And actually, it was also becoming clear that some of the players were sort of doing it every year. They're very very strong athletes and so on, but nonetheless, they were sort of, you know, they knew they're getting in not really with a selection process, and beginning to get a bit bored and not necessarily sort of seeing the value in all cases. And so we just wanted to sort of take a step back on that. One of the things that we did then was try to put some regional trainings out for GB junior women players, which was, you know, patchy. So it worked in some places, didn't work in others. But in the end, the trials that we have just done for that age group did have more players at them and were more competitive, and the coaches felt that the standard of play and the competition was up. So, you know, not to say that proves it was the right thing to do, but we, you know, but it's you know, it seemed like it was the right thing to do at the time, and you know, that's the background to why we did it, I guess. Okay, that table is just a quick table of the positions of our GB teams. Most of them were for the beach there. Some notable medals to mention in both the women's and the men's division in particular. A bronze and a silver respectively, and also the great grandmasters who won Spirit at a separate event there. Okay, going to keep going. Okay, and we're going to talk about some. So before we dive in, I guess we just double check. I think people have been sending questions as they go along, so we're assuming that there are no more right now. And I'm going to hand over to Graham to start a conversation about strategic planning.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So we just wanted to sort of start. Si's going to do a slide in a second on the strategic planning for 2018 to 22. We just wanted to start by saying a little bit about the plan that we finished off. You'll see that's 2013 to 16. Obviously, with all the stuff happening in 15 and 16, and you know, after a discussion at the board, we decided not to try and sort of create a strategic plan for 17. Really, we thought it'd be better to try and make sure we deliver 15 and 16 effectively, and then create our plan for 18 to 22. But we did just want to say a little bit about these. So the main thing I think that we wanted to cover is basically this sort of three-pronged structure of what we're trying to do. So very much around, playing Ultimate, building the sport, and keeping ourselves strong as an organisation and as an entity. One thing I did want to pick out of this was that, although it's not covered in this slide directly, we had an operational plan that ran underneath this strategic plan for those 3 years. And I think, as both Si and Wayne have mentioned, we had a very specific target in there to bring in some international tournaments, and obviously we were extremely successful in both 15 and 16, but that has been at a cost. I mean, it's obviously given us a financial benefit, but it's been at a cost in terms of the impact upon our delivery of the rest of our tasks as an organisation. So we didn't want to say too much more about that. It was really just to kind of put a bit of a basis to what Si's about to say. But clearly, from our point of view, and Si will cover this, picking up on the survey that we did at the end of 2016, we are very clearly moving into a phase now where we want to use the financial resources that we gained out of Worlds, the financial position we're in, to try and build on those to develop the sport going forward. So Si's going to talk about a bit of the shape, the sort of as a draft shape in relation to the plan that we've got for the next few years going forward. Back to you, Si.
Thanks. So I think the first thing I'd also say is that so firstly, the survey that we did at the end of 2016 came back sort of saying, yeah, more development, more help people play locally, let's get more players, help with the coaching culture and the structure. That's where the priorities came back from people. This is a sort of, I suppose we're at draft point here, so, and we're not really intending, I think, to get into much detail today. Probably relieved to hear. So we'll be putting out a document this month. No, I don't mean this month. I mean in December, which talks about this in a little more detail, with a view to offering folks the chance to just, provide some feedback on it. So during December and January, people can get in touch or just email their comments to that, with a view to us then sort of adopting something in January. Or at the end of January. So, I guess what we're expecting to do, what we're planning to do, is to switch our attention to participation, as we've said a few times now. And I think there are sort of 4 aspects to this that stand out. So, schools. I think our experience and success of growing the sport at university level has a lot to do with the fact that there's a sort of structure there already. There are institutions, which club you're part of, because it's the university that you're at, and there are existing competitions there and so on. And as we've just talked about the school games, there are some similar things there, although it's a bigger scale, obviously. But really, the goal is a pretty long-term one at schools, and that's just about, getting people to have some idea of what the game is, so that the number of people who've played a little bit of Ultimate or know what it is when they hear about it is significantly higher, hundreds of times higher than it is now. And that's the first element of that, in a way, is to just enable people to play a little bit at school. We would also like, whilst we're doing this growth, to resolve the imbalance that we have between male and female members and players. I guess I might mention at this point, last year when we talked about the membership and so on, and we sort of put up the slide that said, oh, it's currently 2/3 male and 1/3 female, which is not untypical Lucy Barnes, who was in the meeting that day, said, yeah, but it should be 50-50, shouldn't it? And you know, and she's right, and you know, I think we should be doing more about that now. So that's, you know, going to be a theme of what we're working on. And then the last piece, in just sort of a numbers terms, is to try to do what we can to encourage and support more opportunities for people to just play closer to home. You know, we know full well that people who have, even the people that have played seriously and, you know, given half their lives to playing Ultimate, reach a point where it isn't possible. Just the mechanics of getting to these weekend tournaments and so on is a problem. We think that there's a really good opportunity to try to put some stuff in place that helps people play in a more, you know, low impact way to their lives, so that they can just go out on a Sunday morning and play for an hour, and that's their involvement with Ultimate. And you know, and we want to try to start doing some work to help put more of that in place, both for people who are sort of coming out at the end of playing more seriously, but also all those people who played a little bit but never wanted to do all of that, kind of going away to Cardiff or Salford or, you know, wherever for the whole weekend. And you know, if you're on this call, you probably love that, like me. But you know, I think we know that there are people that we could engage more if we make, you know, more of that. So in order to do a couple of those last pieces, so we've got a pretty clear idea about the things we're going to target at a schools level, but on those others, I think we've probably got some research to do first of all, and I think that's what we're expecting to do, you know, first. And so in addition to just, but I think what we wanted to say right now is this is a priority. And then there'll be some work to work with the community to find ways that we can expand that out, so that we can take things like the successes of the Brighton Draft League, things that people in Reading are doing, things that people in Glasgow are doing, and try and bring some of those things together and do more to share them, do more to try and encourage people in their area to try one thing or another, and so on. I think the other thing then underneath all that is that coaching is clearly really important, and so we will continue to try to do the level of coach education that we're doing and more, and you know, maybe with a bit more finance available to us, we might be able to either put some more time to helping people get external grants for funding that, and we might be able to also just, you know, try to kickstart some of those things in a few places. So, you know, in terms of sort of new, I suppose those are the things that we're new things. I think those are the things that that's the area that we're going to be trying to push is participation growth. On the right-hand side of that table is, you know, I suppose I'm trying to highlight that there are some things that we always have to do. There are some core activities that are always going to be critical. So the national teams, that is our job and our role to support and manage those teams. And so we can never just ignore that. Likewise, we obviously are involved in events. That's how people play. And so that's, you know, that's a really important area. We need to make sure those events are of good quality and that they're safe. And there's clearly some work to do about the competition structures that we have in order to make them scale up. If we are successful in bringing more players in, you know, trying to play more regularly, they're not going to do it through the competition structure that we had in 2014 and 2015 and 2016. It just isn't going to work. That's not viable, and so we have to make some changes there. We will also continue to focus an effort and keep our eye on the spirit of the game. And you know, I would say that well, two things, I suppose. So you know, we talked a bit about Woofduf's work to try to get the sport into the Olympics, and you know, not long ago, people would always say, you know, you never have that conversation with the Olympics while it's a self-refereed sport. But do you know what? That isn't what Woofduf is being told at all, and that in fact that side of our game is a big deal, and it's one of the things that makes the game really interesting externally. And I know it's it can be an area that's challenging, but it also is something that people are interested in. And likewise, the conversations I've been having with the Youth Sport Trust about the school games, their eyes light up when we talk about that stuff, because it's really, really interesting from the school's point of view, the conflict resolution that's in there and providing people with some tools and so on. So so that's going to remain important. And then look, the bottom right hand corner is perhaps well, it's also really important to mention. So there's we do need to keep making sure that the organisation is governed well. We need to make sure there's enough money there. And I mentioned I talked about volunteers earlier, but also I just think, I think it's very clear, certainly from my point of view, that in the last few years we have found it harder to kind of keep a good kind of level of information flow back and forth between the organisation and between people who are playing. And I think it's very clear that we've got to do some more work. We'd like to bring more people into the committees, but also provide those people with better tools to be able to kind of do the work they're doing there and improve the communication flow, to and from. And, we need to be probably doing more consulting on changes before we do them. So things like last year's stuff that happened in the competitions, where we had those things, we need to move into being an organisation where those things are kind of, we see them earlier and we get out to our community and kind of talk with people in advance of being sort of cornered into just having to make the least worst decision, which, and we will still have some least worst decisions to make about 2018 in competitions point of view, but I think that's an area that we've really got to be doing some more on, and we will be. And I guess perhaps the most interesting question, and I'm not really imagining that we'll be able to deal with it here, but in a way is the things that aren't here, and getting feedback from people later on about the things that aren't here and whether that's right. And a couple stand out, not trying to run another international event for a few years, I think is inherent in this. The question of cutting or eliminating costs for GB players, we're not highlighting that. It's very expensive to be a GB player, and that is a problem. But it's not something that we're sort of flagging up here and saying that's going to be a priority to deal with in the next few years. It may be that we make some other successes, that we do make a bit of success, a bit of progress there, but it's not something that we're actively putting at the top of the list. Live streaming competitions, we do happen to have done that last year, and we may be able to continue, but again, we're not sort of flagging it up and saying, marketing our competitions externally and live streaming everything is a kind of high priority. Mark has asked if these are in order of importance. No, they're not. They were really just intended to be, sort of a pretty high-level view, high-level way of describing the things that we saw as the priority for the upcoming few years. I think underneath this, I suppose, as well, we have this sort of sense that we ought to be working on a kind of Olympics-ready perspective. I've talked about it a couple of times, and clearly WUFDF is of the hope, and no doubt many of us are of the hope, that that by 2028, probably not 24, but maybe 28, when the Olympics will be in LA, that is an opportunity for the sport to get there. And what we, I think, are recognizing now is that if that is a possibility, we ought, at least in the background, to be thinking about things that are, that might be of importance or necessary, and things we ought to be thinking about. So there's this sort of background idea about thinking about things that sort of move us in the direction of being able to cope, I guess, if that actually happens. Okay. We've all been on the phone now for an hour and a half, and I'm not really imagining that it's a good format for a discussion about those things. As I've said, we will be putting something out for people to feed back on, and there's not that many people on the call. Most of you know how to get hold of me, and I'm more than happy to kind of talk about them just offline. Maybe an easier way to do it than trying to do on here. I hope that's okay. I'm happy to answer questions if people tuck them in. But otherwise, that's our plan. And so I will move past there to our last slide. And so, you know, we had no idea who'd be here, and I sort of have the idea that actually, if people are here, they're probably already doing loads, and so some of this is blatantly obvious, I suspect. I know that many of you are already coaching in schools or running a local league and so on. I guess we do want to encourage people to think that they can get involved. I think there has been a feeling that, you know, I can only get involved if I'm on the board, and actually that's not true. There are large numbers of UKU committees that need help, and so, you know, if you are interested in those things, we really would say, you know, we really welcome people getting in touch about that. So please do. And then I guess we're just going to finish with some questions if people have them, and people have sent some already, so I'll just jump to them. So Luca said, is there any plans to encourage public outreach outside of university or school? So yeah, yes, but I think it's not an easy thing to do. And going back to the comments I made just now about local development, I think one of the steps that we need to take is a bit of research with both within and outside the ultimate community for things that are successful in that area. So so yeah, definitely hoping to do that, but not got specific plans to sort of to launch right now. And yeah, so Mark is suggesting ultimate in the park, like the rugby in the park scheme that works. And you know, I think there will be schemes that we can kind of try and, you know, tag onto and sort of copy and so on. So we will be, you know, we'll be looking at that. And so I do think, though, I guess, so yes, and with a couple of other things. So we actually have, for example, for the last couple of years, the National Young Farmers Association has been running Ultimate as their national sports competition. So there are other schemes, other things that we've, you know, supported and helped with. But I suspect if we look at our data, we're going to see that the sort of easiest place to do something first is retaining people who've already learned how to play. Not because we want to forget about everybody else, but just because that might be the easiest place to kind of build up our numbers to get momentum. But hopefully that answers your question. Somebody else has asked, are you going to share your slides? So we've been recording this, and so hopefully that will have worked, and we'll be able to make the recording of this available, and sort of one way or the other that will either be as, you know, just as the recording, or maybe we'll just put the slides out. I mean, I'm slightly concerned the slides on their own may not, you know, provide enough background, but certainly we'll put some of the information out anyway. And I think we're quite close to the end, and so if you've got any questions, it's definitely time to throw them out there. And Mark is asking if anyone's got any nibbles, which suggests to me that Mark is definitely near the end of his time. Yeah. Right. Paige, I'm going to turn your mic back on. Oh no, you need to turn your mic back on. So I think that if anyone else doesn't have any questions, Luca has asked if we plan on doing this sort of AGM format in the future. I think so. I'm hoping that the system, not immediately, but in the next couple of days, will send a quick survey out for everyone that's been here. Honestly, the answer to that question will depend on what everyone here says about it, frankly. So if it has been a good way to do it, then we will. It's certainly saved a bunch of people some time and money, I suspect. So, you know, I guess I would think so. And certainly we will be doing some more of this stuff for other things, for other sort of consultations or other meetings and so on. So we'll be trying to use this a bit more to talk to members. Yeah. Okay, hopefully that answers that one. Have more people been watching here than normally attend? So, no. Well, yes, a little bit, only just though. Certainly more people registered than normally attend, but actually not all of those folks have been able to connect. That might be that they are figuring that they can get the recording afterwards, or yeah, obviously we don't really know why. But so it's pretty similar, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had about 15 all the way through, I think.
Yeah.
Plus the panelists. It's gone up and down a little bit, but.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody?
Nothing else appearing here. Okay. In that case,
We should probably call it a day then, should we, Simon?
yes. So it was, yeah, and we're just inside our time, I think. So, so look, I mean, Beej is probably going to say something too, but I'd just like to say thanks very much. We are dead interested in what people think about what we've done, and by doing it this way, I hope the quality of signal and audio and everything else has been okay or better. And thanks for putting some time aside on a Saturday afternoon to do it. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I really appreciate everybody giving up some time for that. That's it's been useful. It certainly saved me a long journey from somewhere to wherever we would otherwise have held the AGM. So I really appreciate that. I think it's worked for me. So yeah, really just want to echo what Si says. Really do please give us some comment on it as to whether it worked and whether you'd like to see different backgrounds to Si's and mine, which are a little bit odd when you look at them on a webcam. But there we go.
I'll try.
Just to jump in on that feedback thing, so I'm expecting that a poll will come out connected to your registration being here. But if that doesn't work out, we'll just do it on a Google form like normal, I guess. Sorry, Wayne.
I was just going to say I'll try and provide a Mediterranean backdrop next time.
That would be great.
Blue sky and sea would be great. Excellent. Right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I think we'll call an end there. Thanks a lot, Si. Thanks a lot, Wayne. And thanks everyone for coming along. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheerio.
Thank you. Bye.